So how do you differentiate yourself then? Especially like as it gets more competitive, are you the one who just has to think creatively, like how to stand out in the market? Is it primarily colors? Are you thinking, do you survey your audience? What do you do to help yourself stand out?
So I guess I would say there's a couple of ways, right? So first of all, I feel like I know the niche pretty well. So I kind of feel like I've got maybe a sixth sense a little bit for what I think is going to be successful. But it doesn't necessarily mean that like I know what I'm doing. It's just like I think this is a good idea for a product. So we'll dig in and we'll try to find molds. We'll try to find products that like really are unique, that aren't sold in the marketplace. Maybe stuff that's new. Sometimes our suppliers come to us and they're just like, "Hey, I got this thing for you. What do you think?" And then we'll try to figure out how we can put our own spin on it to make it something that's unique, that no one else is doing, that no one else can do, right? But really, once we do that, before we even, maybe we'll get a sample, but before we order the product, we'll try to create a master, like a hero image for it. And using some of those split testing softwares like Sellametrics or Intellivy, we'll run it against the competitors and see how we're doing. And sometimes if we see something online that already exists, we'll do that anyway and just kind of compare them, right? But we want to like kind of run those tests if we can and be like, okay, how do you like this compared to this? And if they say yes, then I know we're on the right track, right? And sometimes I'll look at the feedback and be like, okay, this is interesting. We want to change this. Oh, they want this. They think this is better. And you can kind of change the product based on what customers think before you've even designed it. Other times we'll look at the feedback and be like, this is stupid. Like, there's nothing here that, like, I know why they voted for the other product. I still like mine. And we've been successful doing that too. But kind of take it or leave it, but kind of knowing where they're coming from when they give that feedback. So I would say that's probably the first thing that we do. And it kind of definitely saves money over spending tens of thousands of dollars on products that may or may not sell.
Yeah, love that. Love that approach. It's always like, can you start with like your minimum viable product, right?
Exactly,
Your
right.
MVP, just to get things going, get some quick feedback so that you're not buying 10,000 units and then like, oh crap.
Yeah, exactly,
You got to
exactly.
pivot.
And there's been times where we've gone back and forth with like a graphic designer about like the main image on a product that we don't even sell yet. Spending a lot of money on those images, right? Just trying to make it work because we think it can be successful.
Yeah. What tools are you using to test images right now?
So like I said, we use Sellametrics
Okay.
and Intellivy are probably the top two.
Okay. Yeah. I know there's been PickFu that
Yep.
people have used in
Yeah,
the
PickFu's
past.
good. Product
Product
Pinion,
Pinion.
those are, they're
Yep.
all great. And they all have their own functions. But Andre from Sellametrics is like a good friend of mine.
Yep.
So I use his, and it's actually probably one of the cheaper ones for split testing. So I kind of use his probably the most for that specific purpose. I might use IntelliView more if I'm testing, if I'm testing other things too, or even just to confirm what's going on in Sellametrics, right? I'll do that too. But like, yeah, I kind of use his, it's cheaper for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Totally agree. So for our listeners, we have had Andre from Sellametrics on the podcast. We've
Oh,
had
good.
Matt Costin from Product Pinion on the
Yep.
podcast. So like go back and listen to those because like those dudes, they know their stuff and how to optimize your images and really how to stand out. Because I agree with you, Brandon, like as it gets more difficult and more competitive, like you've got to be able to test before you even place your purchase order to make sure you're going to win. And it's because like PPC isn't the magic pixie dust when the product's here, right? Like
Right.
it's your decision, your success is already baked in at the time you place your PO for whatever that product is.
Yeah.
Your success or failure is baked in at that point.
Right.
You're
Well,
not going to be able to resurrect it after the fact.
also, I also think that like, right, you do all these tests and maybe you come to a conclusion and you launch the product and you might have 3 or 4 main images that you didn't like, right? That didn't work for the test for whatever reason, but you still have those, right? And if you're doing a launch and it's not going well, nothing's stopping you from going back and having those and trying those on the main image, right? And they might have, I'm a big believer in using split testing, but not using it as the end all be all and being like, this is, the gospel. And a
Yeah.
lot of people do treat it that way, but like saying like, okay, I've got these other images. Let's try one. I kind of like this one, right? But having those backup images kind of ready to go and not having to wait and go to a designer and wait a couple weeks or you have them ready to go, right? And you can try those too, and that might save a launch where maybe you weren't going to be successful before, right?
Yeah. I think that is very true as well. Like the software tools, they'll give you an
Right.
idea of what's right, but I love, like, sometimes you got to have the Amazon customers vote with their money, right?
Yes.
And that's where, like, the rubber really meets the road. So again, you take it for what it's worth, like try to dial it in, but like if it's significantly different, right? Like that, you can have more confidence in, like, oh wow, 80% of people selected this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. But like when you're splitting hairs, like 55 to 45% for a couple images, you're like, this could go the exact opposite way
Yeah,
when you stick this
exactly,
on
right.
Amazon.
And a lot of them don't focus on like what is statistically significant, and a lot of them
Yeah.
aren't necessarily. The other thing I keep in mind is, I don't know if I've been following Scott Adams. He's like the Dilbert guy on Twitter for a while, and he has like a really good point that like whatever anything is gets pulled, no matter what it is, 25% of the people just have the wrong opinion. And you should just disregard it. And you'll see like polls of like the craziest things, right? And it'll be like 75 yes, 25 no, or 23 no, right? Or something like that, right? And it's like, and it kind of holds true. So when it comes to these split testing, I kind of like disregard like 25% of the right. So if you get an 80-20, I'm like, that's bad. That is like you've lost. That's basically 100% no, right?
Yeah.
But if it's like 55-45, I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean anything, right?
Yep.
So I kind of like view it that way.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Brandon, you have a legal background as well. I know you've also had to deal with some Amazon account health issues as it relates to copyrights, trademarks. Talk to me about the things that you've dealt with and how you've resolved those throughout the years.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of things come across for trademarks, for copyright, for people stealing our images. I think first of all, being brand registered is obviously key to helping protect that. That's like the number one thing. But the thing that I really use is when it comes to contesting those is archive.org. Or our own website, because what it does is it has like a history of like the product page, so you can go there and see what your product looked like 5 years ago, whatever. And it kind of has that history. So when I contest things to Amazon to protect my copyright or my trademark, whatever that is, I say like, look, this was our page in 2016. It has the image on it, right? And they can look at that and be like, yeah, it does, right? And like there's really no refuting that, right? Taking, if you want to take screenshots of your products at different points in time, that's like a good idea too, right? But there's been times where it's just not possible, or we're just don't do it. So like, I think that's number one to kind of help for fighting that. In terms of like when people have come after us for trademark violations, right, and they've come for patent stuff or things like that, right? The most important thing for the patent is to really look at when prior art was used, right? Because there's a rule, and I think it can't be a year prior to when the patent was issued, right? And if you can find that, then that patent is basically useless, right? And not only can you then go back to them and show them that, you can then come back to them for damages and say like, look, you've took down my listing on Prime Day. We would have made X amount of money. We're happy to take this to court or do whatever with it, right? We can do whatever we want. And we've been successful coming back and finding that prior art. And something I feel like I'm good at is like, I can do deep dives on Google and internet searches and things like that. And we found that prior art and been like, no, this patent doesn't make sense, right? And they kind of have to begrudgingly agree with you, right? So that's kind of like the best way to get out of that kind of thing.
Interesting. So you've had success basically, like even though the government has provided, the U.S. Patent Attorney's Office has granted a patent on something, but it was disclosed maybe earlier than what they told the examiner it was actually.
Yes, absolutely. And then another scenario that we had actually was we had worked with a company where they had us on the patent and we were dead to rights, and it was a great seller. And we were like, that's it, right? And we went to an attorney, and they worked out a profit share with them until we sold out of that inventory. And they were really happy with that, and we were really happy with that. And we gave them that profit share, and then we came up with we redid the product to not infringe on their patent, then patented ours. So now they have their patent and we have our patent, and basically no one can enter the marketplace for that exact product except for them and us. So it
Mm,
actually worked out in our favor that this even happened, because we didn't realize what we were doing then, that what we were doing was infringing, and we were going to kind of patent something else, and then we ended up patenting this, and it was like it all worked out. So it actually worked out in our favor. So I think IP is a really important piece of this, right? Even though you are going to have trouble and copycats and things like that, it's like really the biggest and most defensible thing you can have.
yeah, very smart. I like those strategies and your approach there. Brandon, as we begin to wrap things up, I love to leave the audience with 3 actionable takeaways.
Mm-hmm.
Here are 3 actionable takeaways that I noted from your episode today. Number 1, resilience is one of the most underrated skills that you can develop as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And the reason for that is we just heard Brandon talk about like various topics from legal issues, from PPC, from product launches to sourcing products. And the name of the game is this. Over the last decade, things have changed on Amazon. And over the next decade, they will continue to change. And they are only going to get more difficult. A new book that I've been reading called Grit talks about the most successful people in life. It's just time in the game. That's all it comes down to. It's not that they're smarter than other people, but it's like they will keep going when the going gets tough and they don't give up. Brandon, you and I see this a lot in the Amazon space. The number of people that as soon as it gets a little tough, they then venture into the Airbnb market, or
exactly.
they go
Crypto.
start another business. Now they're in the crypto, or maybe they're starting their own agency. And to be honest with you, there is nothing more damaging to your future earning potential than switching industries.
Yes.
If you've got a decade of experience in an industry, stay in it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep doubling down on it and you go through all the legal hurdles, the product launch, the sourcing, the tariffs, if you can stay in the game, you will be able to compound your returns exponentially another decade from now, just because like you keep going in the same direction.
Absolutely.
Whereas you're not digging in 10 different holes. Like one hole dug really deep goes a lot further than people trying to dig 10 different holes at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. I will add to that, first of all, I think that very well stated. I think if there is a problem, there's always a solution. But in terms of like, a decade of experience, right? And I think that's a really interesting point. And I don't know why I bring up Scott Adams again, but he also has another amazing concept, which he calls his like talent stack, right? Saying that like you can be, if you're in the top like 20% of, let's say, selling things on Amazon, but you're also in the top 20% of, let's say, knowing kitchenware, right? Those two things combined, you're suddenly in the top 0.01% in the world of knowing kitchenware on Amazon, right? And you can take that with just about anything. Like if you're a great photographer and you know Amazon, you're suddenly in the top 0.01% of people who can photograph products for Amazon because you know both things, right? And I think that's a really important thing to think about as what plays to your advantage going forward, even if you are switching or are you staying the same. And most of the time, I think it means just sticking with what you're good at and using your skills, right? And like our conference is another example, right? I knew nothing about conferences. I was good at selling online. I learned about conferences. And I think we have one of the best conferences because we know about selling on Amazon and we know about putting on conferences now, right? And no one else knows that the way we do.
Yeah. Excellent. Very well said.
Thank you. Yeah.
So takeaway number 2 from today is go back to your optimizations. If you are in a cash flow constraint, right, you have kind of 2 options. You can either get really creative and get creative financing in order to launch new products, or if you're really in a tough spot and you don't want to pursue those creative financing solutions to launch new products, then the best thing to do is like work with your existing products, optimize their price, optimize the main images, bring them back to the studs, as Brandon mentioned, and begin adding on, because there's sometimes like there's a lot more room to grow, but because things have been easy, you just have kind of neglected things. And so now's a really good time to like make sure that you truly are the best in your niche or your market. And that comes through optimization.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
my third and final action item here is to always be launching. So as Brandon talked about, what's his plan for 2026? I hope to launch more products. I got a whole pipeline of products ready to go. And that would be my encouragement to all the listeners. Like, you should already know the products you're launching in 2026 and even into 2027 at this point, because that is your best growth lever. It's the way that you combat the overseas competitors that try to copy you. And if you can do what Brandon has talked about today, which is like finding and differentiating yourself with whether it be design patents or actual utility patents, like, that's how you create a moat that compounds for the next decade. So those are my 3 action items. Brandon, anything else you would add? Or that?
Yeah, I would just say when it comes to launching, I think one way to think about it is that competition is always changing, right? And if there's something that's successful, there's always a million competitors, right? One of our products, we were like the first ones to launch, and now there's about 30 people doing the exact same thing. And if we had just been complacent, we would have just lost market share and died, and that would have been the end of our business, right? When you're launching, you're looking at new niches, at new products, at new optimizations that like maybe don't exist when you were doing it last time, and you can find edges that are new, right, versus old, which is what your old products are, right? So I kind of think of it as like you're looking at the product's life cycle, right? And as you go farther along, maybe the sales drop a little bit, but if you go over something new, that's the hottest, newest trend, right? And kind of look at it that way, and not just like, yes, every launch is a lottery ticket, but like you're also like optimizing towards 2026 versus optimizing towards 2018.
Well, Brandon, it's been an honor having you on the podcast today. And definitely we want people to go check out Innovate coming up in October there in New York City. Great conference. Brandon, looking forward to it. Thanks again for your time today.
Yeah, it's great being here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecommbreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.